Chapter 128, Spatial Ring. The reason why Ling Han had died in his last life was because of his quest to seek the secrets behind attaining Shattering Void Tear. Now that he had seen a real proof of the existence of Shattering Void Tear, he could not help but get excited. But after his wave of excitement had passed, all he felt was worry and incomprehension. Zhang Yuofeng had obviously taken part in such a clash of the titans, but what was the reason for it? Everyone knew that the higher one's cultivation level was, the larger the difference there would be between the power levels of different cultivation levels. For example, he, at the fourth layer of element gathering tier, was able to pit himself even against an opponent in the first layer of gushing spring tier. But once he reached heaven tier, the difference of a single layer would be like the gap between heaven and earth. There existed a gulf that was impossible to cross between the first layer and the second layer of heaven tier. If there really rose up an ultimate warrior of shattering void tier in this world, then that was definitely an invincible existence. Why would Zhang Yuefeng still choose to battle such an opponent when he obviously knew he was no match for the latter? It would be fine if only one such idiot appeared. The thing was, there were too many of them, and all of them were powerful warriors of heaven tier. How could he believe such a thing? Beside this corpse also lay a sword, the martial intent of its previous user engraved within the seals carved onto it. This was an ultimate secret treasure, able to pass on the martial arts knowledge of this powerful warrior. Unfortunately, once it had left the restraints of the ground, the sword automatically awakened and transformed into a rainbow that exited via the water. In an instant, it had completely disappeared without any traces left behind. Ling Han shook his head with a sigh. The current him was really much too weak. Even if the greatest of treasures lay in front of him, he did not have the ability to make it his own. This feeling could really make one feel depressed. Yi? His eyes lit up all of a sudden. There was actually a ring on the finger of this corpse. If a powerful warrior such as this person was still wearing this kind of adornment, then one thing was clear. This ring was definitely a treasure. It could be a spiritual tool, or could be a support-type treasure that could help one meditate and rest. But the biggest possibility of what it could be was spatial ring. It could create a dimension of its own that was a space for storage. Ling Han removed the ring, used his divine sense to scan over it, and could confirm that this was definitely the spatial ring that he had always wanted. What a huge reward, he thought. Even if he did not get anything else out of this journey, it was a big enough reward to have gotten this spatial ring. Your grin looks so terrifying. What is it? Li Si-chan said, feeling a bit creeped out. The grin currently on Ling Han's face was really too scary. Ling Han laughed and said, "Let me show you two a magic trick." He slipped the spatial ring onto his finger, then removed a pill bottle from his pocket. He waved it around a few times, indicating for the two girls to watch clearly. Then, with a shoo, the pill bottle had disappeared. Yi! The two girls gasped in unison. How could a solid pill bottle just disappear like that? Aren't you going to give me some applause? Ling Han asked with a smile. Yi, how did you make the thing disappear? Li Si-chan's eyes were wide open in a stare. If it was not the fact that Ling Han was male and she was female, she really wanted to search all over Ling Han's body. It would not be interesting if I tell you the trick to it. Ling Han laughed. He took out the pill bottles and monetary notes from his pockets and, one by one, stored them into the spatial ring. It truly was the spatial ring that once belonged to a heaven tier warrior. The space inside was about as big as a whole house, so it could store a lot of things. The benefits of the spatial ring was not only the fact that it was convenient. Another advantage of it was that it could hide things very well. Unless the spatial ring was snatched away, there was no way the things stored inside would be found. In this tiny little rain country, probably no one else knew how to use the spatial rings, so Ling Han was very reassured. What Ling Han thought disappointing was the fact that the spatial ring was completely empty. There was nothing inside at all. There was no way an ultimate warrior of heaven tier could be this poor, of course. Ling Han deduced that this warrior of heaven tier was well aware that he was going to die in this battle, So he had left behind all the good stuff he owned to his descendants. The spatial ring most possibly only contained things like some alchemical pills that could replenish his origin power or heal his injuries, as well as his spiritual tools. Thus, the alchemical pills were used, and the spiritual tools were taken out to be used in battle, so there was naturally nothing left inside the spatial ring. Forget it, one can't be too greedy. Ling Han buried the corpse of this warrior, feeling a bit of sorrow as he did. How rare and powerful was a warrior of heaven tier. Yet in the end, there wasn't even a person to collect his remains. One really has to sigh at this. Let's go. They continued to advance forwards. Those who had walked ahead of them had also discovered a corpse, yet they were not as lucky as Ling Han, who had managed to obtain a spatial ring. They only saw a pile of white bones that shattered into dust upon a single touch. The remains of powerful warriors of heaven tier should not be so feeble. But the appearance of the bone-eating grass has changed everything. The nutrients and essence of these bones have all been absorbed by the grass, so they had become the same as those of a mortal. Thus it was natural that they were unable to withstand the eroding powers of time. If Ling Han had come just a bit later, then the corpse he had discovered would not have been as intact. The essence of the bones had not yet been completely absorbed by the bone-eating grass. So naturally, the bones were still able to maintain their sturdiness. The bone-eating grass was a very odd kind of plant. It could only grow on the remains of powerful warriors of at least deity transformation tier, yet it did not have any value by itself. The essence that it had sucked out would be directly returned to nature. It could be claimed as the garbage collector of nature. Ling Han's face became more and more somber. Just the way that he had passed, he could see no less than 20 corpses of these powerful warriors. 20 corpses! When have heaven tier warriors become so cheap? Yi, what is that? Lu Yutong asked, suddenly pointing at a spot. Ling Han looked in the direction she was pointing at and saw that there was a white flower growing all alone there. The flower stem was like jade and its bud was about the size of a human fist. There was light glowing all around it. He suddenly gaped in shock, a disbelieving expression on his face. Even he, someone who had once been an ultimate warrior of heaven tier, was very shocked. It was proof that this flower was definitely extraordinary. That was natural, because the light flickering around the flower was the same as the light that shone from the light of God. A level 10 spiritual medicine. This could be claimed as a medicine of the gods. This is a big bonus, a really big bonus. A strange light shone from Ling Han's eyes. In his last life, he had only heard of level 9 treasured medicines, and had hoped at least to see such an item once in his lifetime, yet had never thought that he would be able to come upon a level 10 godly medicine in this life. Could this kind of godly medicine in front of them allow one to immediately become a deity, and directly shatter the void to become a god? Ling Han did not know, but such a godly medicine was right in front of him. There was no justification to him simply passing by, ignoring it. He immediately walked towards the godly medicine, his expression unable to hide the excitement he was feeling. Stop right there. There was a cold humph, and 4 men were racing over. Obviously, they had also discovered this stalk of godly medicine, though they did not know its true value. How could Ling Han bother to pay them any attention? However, these 4 people were not just fast, they had also shot out a long-distance attack. Shoo, a flash of light from a saber swept over, a dominating pressure emanating from it. Lu Yutong drew her sword and, ding, managed to block this saber attack. All who manage to find the natural treasures of this world have a share to it. Let us first discuss how we are going to divide it among ourselves, a middle-aged man said as he neared them. Huang Zi Tao! Lu Yutong's elegant brow wrinkled into a slight frown, showing a sliver of dread in her expression. This man was a clansman of the Huang clan of the 8 great clans. In terms of age, he was older by Lu Yutong by about 10 years, and was in his early 30s. He was in the 5th layer of Gushing Spring tier, and was definitely not someone to be underestimated. We take 90%, and you guys get 10%. No disagreements, right? Huang Zitao said haughtily. If he knew that this was a stalk of godly medicine, then he most probably would not be talking about this kind of division method, and instead immediately kill them off to keep them from divulging the secret and making this godly medicine his own. No disagreements, your sister. Ling Han directly gave him the middle finger.